Evening and welcome. We will call to order this January 23rd, 2023 meeting of the Center Region Council of Governments General Forum to order. I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point, staff will take a roll call of our members to make sure everybody can hear and be heard.
Balashandran? Here. Barlow? Here. Baring? Engman? Krishnakudi?
Here.
Lipscomb? Marshall?
Here.
Bernier?
Here.
Best? Here. Frank?
Here.
Stilson?
Here.
Trainer?
Here.
Danini?
Here.
Gracie Griffin?
Here.
Stevens?
Here.
Strickland?
Here.
Thompson? Here. Beck? Hartle? Hoover?
Here.
Piper? Cervello?
Here.
Graham?
Here.
Hammeister?
Here.
Arden?
Here.
Lord? Here. Wilson? Abrams? Magruder?
Here.
Rob?
Here.
Trevino?
Here.
Whitman?
Here.
And Deanna Baring, can you hear us?
I'm here.
Thank you.
Very good. Does any members of the public have anything that they would like to discuss with the general forum that is not on today's agenda? Hearing nor seeing none, we'll go to introductions. Ms. Stilson.
Yes, I am very pleased to recognize Ms. Susan Trainer, the newest member of College Township Council. She is taking Paul Takek's seat for the remainder of this year. Welcome, Susan. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to, reintroduce for you Sean Kaufman, our emergency management coordinator for the COG for many years, is now also the acting fire director. And so we appreciate Sean wearing two hats right now and doing double duty while we prepare to restart the recruitment for fire director. Thanks, Sean.
And now some recognitions. Mr. Roth.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Todd Roth. I'm the aquatics supervisor for Center Region Parks and Recreation. Joining me here, I have Hope Roden from the American Red Cross, and Kathy and Roy Stewart. Also joining us via Zoom is Victoria Stewart and Alex Stewart, two of our lifeguards. Alex and Tori were lifeguards with Center Region Parks and Recreation. They went through our certification courses with the American Red Cross certification program. They did ongoing regular job training while they were lifeguards. But let me tell you a short story about Alex and Tori. They were on vacation in Cabo, Mexico. And as they're walking down the beach, coming towards them and their family, a baby and a mother, walking along the beach. 15-foot waves. One of the waves hit the mother and the infant and immediately swept them out to sea. Tori and Alex, without thinking, reacted immediately, jumped and swam into the ocean and pulled the mother and the infant back to safety. The mother was okay, the infant was not breathing, but using their training, they were able to get the infant to respond again and begin breathing on her own. As a team with their knowledge and experience in the Red Cross life-saving protocols and training from Center Region Parks and Rec, they saved 2 lives that day. I'm so proud that we're here to honor them. I'd like to turn it over to Hope to do the honors.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Hope Roten. I'm the Executive Director of the Mid-Central Pennsylvania chapter of the American Red Cross. And at the Red Cross, we know that emergencies can happen at any time. It could be in the parking lot at the grocery store, your community pool, or on the beach while you're on vacation. regardless of when they occur, emergency situations usually have one thing in common: someone steps in to help. Today, I have the distinct honor of recognizing two people who, when a life-threatening emergency happened, immediately went into action to save lives. Additionally, I have the privilege of recognizing their instructor, whose dedication to teaching others life-saving skills has undoubtedly made an impact in this community and beyond. But first, just a little history lesson about the American Red Cross Life Saving Awards. The American Red Cross Life Saving Awards date back to 1911. Since its inception, this award has been focused on recognizing those who, in time of emergency, use their life-saving skills and knowledge to sustain or save a life. In 1928, this standalone award evolved into 3 separate awards: the Certificate of Merit, the Life-Saving Award, and the Certificate of Extraordinary Personal Action. The Certificate of Merit, which is the highest award given by the American Red Cross, is for those Red Cross-trained individuals who have no obligation to respond to an emergency, but they do so anyway. The award recipients in its 100-plus year span have been lifeguards, police officers, firefighters, and everyday citizens. This award has borne the signatures of 17 presidents of the United States of America, including current President Joe Biden. Kind of to recap what Todd has already shared, on May 22nd, 2021, Alexandria and Victoria Stewart, both trained in American Red Cross CPR First Aid AED, helped to save the lives of a mother and her infant daughter who were in distress on the beach. While on the beach, they saw a mother and her infant get swept out into the ocean by a tall wave. Without hesitation, Alexandria and Victoria jumped in and dove underwater. Alexandria rescued the infant, and Victoria rescued the mom. Both victims were brought back safely to the beach. The infant had aspirated water, and the rescuers were able to clear her airway to resume normal breathing. Without a doubt, the skills learned in the American Red Cross Training Services course helped to save the life of this family. For this act, I am honored to present Alexandria and Victoria Stewart with the American Red Cross's highest honor, the Certificate of Merit. The actions displayed by each of you exemplify the highest degree of concern of one human being for another who is in distress. Also this evening, it's my honor to present Tom Goff with the American Red Cross Life Saving Instructor Award, another one of the highest awards presented by the American Red Cross. This award is given to instructors who teach the skills that help to save lives. So in my experience with the American Red Cross, I've learned the heroes, the brave men and women who are willing to step forward and help a stranger in their greatest time of need. They're all around us. But I've also learned that these individuals are not common, because to act quickly and decisively during a crisis takes a level of courage reserved for only a certain few. So on behalf of the lives that were saved, and on behalf of the American Red Cross, thank you so much for your actions that day for saving lives. Thank you.
Just want to thank the girls' parents for being able to be here with us tonight to accept on their behalf.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Alex or Victoria, any words of wisdom for us?
Just thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate the recognition. I'm glad that we were able to help out in any way we could.
Yeah, I would say definitely pros to Todd. He taught us everything we know, so without him, we wouldn't have been able to do what we did.
Absolutely.
Great way to start a meeting. At this point, we'll move to COG meeting etiquette. Mr. Norberg.
Excuse me. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Each year at this time, members and staff of the COG remind ourselves of the aspirations we have for running meetings that are full of opportunity for everyone to be treated with respect and dignity. Our General Forum adopted in 2018 a set of guidelines for COG meeting etiquette, and now each year we preserve the opportunity to remember these guidelines and encourage each other and ourselves to strive to have wonderful meetings that can be productive, as well as ones where folks feel like they can participate in a professional atmosphere. The guidelines are included in your packet as well as on the COG website, so that anytime someone wishes to participate in one of our meetings, they're able to find the information about how to participate and what the process is. I'd like to hit a few of the high points regarding our meetings so that we can all strive to work on these things together. Including conducting meetings efficiently so that time is well spent, that we have polite, civil, and respectful behavior, as well as one that promotes good governance, not only in COG meetings, but throughout all of the center region. To that end, we ask everyone to respect the chair, treat everyone with respect and courtesy, keep attention focused on the agenda and the topic at hand. Please wait your turn. We know that is sometimes a challenge, and we ask for your patience when we are doing hybrid meetings, that we work really hard to keep an eye on both those in the room as well as on Zoom who are waiting to speak. We ask everyone to limit side conversations, respect the decisions that have been made by the committee or board, even if you disagree with it. We ask everyone to come prepared. We provide all of the materials online through SharePoint, so if anyone, whether you're a member or a visitor, if you have trouble accessing materials online, we ask you to please contact staff so we can help you with that. And we encourage and request everyone to register in advance for meetings so we can ensure we have a forum for the committee meetings or the general forum. Please also participate actively, be patient with the process and one another, be aware of body language, especially be aware of your appearance on Zoom, and then just continue to participate in a polite, respectful manner throughout all of our meetings. Again, these guidelines are online as well as in your packet for the meeting tonight. I'd be happy to see if there are any questions or comments that anyone wishes to share.
Questions for the executive director?
Thanks so much. It's not really about the meeting etiquette, but it relates to communication, which can sometimes be a barrier to people being kind to one another if they don't really know how to manage communication barriers, I guess. So there's been significant feedback to me that when individuals are on Zoom, it's really difficult for them to hear some of the direction that's being given to them by the chair, or some of the perhaps presentations that are being given in meetings. And I know that staff's really significantly invested time in that. And I'm not sure what we can do in terms of that. I will say that one behavior that's been relevant for me when I've been a Zoom participant and been unable to hear things in the room is because people with papers are shuffling them around microphones, and that interferes with Zoom. So I don't know if that's helpful for staff, but in particular in the Park Authority meeting, they have a lot of paper documents. We're a lot of not paper, but they're doing a lot of paging of lots of big agendas. And so that's a thing. So I just wanted to mention that now in the general forum. Again, I know you've been working on it. It's not about being critical at all. But I know that, again, some different chairs have different ways of managing whether Zoom participants can hear. And some ways are like really helpful, and then other ways are not that helpful. So anything that you can do to support that would be great. Thanks.
Thank you for that feedback, and the reminder for everyone is to certainly mute your microphone when you are not speaking, whether you're in the room or not. And we are still working with the vendor who installed the system to try and overcome some of the feedback issues, as well as just trying to make sure that extraneous noise and feedback is minimized whenever possible. So we are trying to continue to improve the experience. For those of you who did not complete the survey, we did do a survey late last year on the audio improvements that we're still striving to make, and the addition of the sound buffering panels in this room was part of that. But thank you for the comments.
One of the other tools that I know staff has engaged is they've actually muted the general forum room when somebody's speaking online, to try to reduce the feedback. And everything. That obviously creates a challenge, but kudos to Scott Binkley for managing.
Is
that.
Scott the only one that has the mute access then, or can others mute Zoom, or is it?
Other staff can mute.
Yeah. Whoever's managing the meeting for staff,
Right.
but it seems like Mr. Binkley ends up with a lot of.
Obviously, as more and more people are coming back in person, the sidebars are a little more prevalent. You're absolutely right with, from the Parks meeting, there's a lot of paper, and there's 4 microphone arrays up on the ceiling here, and they're gonna capture, and there's unfortunately at this point, no way to kind of minimize that.
So maybe the chair providing awareness to the participants that are actually in the room. I know a lot of folks, not a lot, some folks in the general forum have some negative connotations perhaps about Zoom participation in meetings. It's been discussed as being a lesser manner in which to participate. I don't agree with that, but that's been promoted, and I wonder if sometimes we overlook perhaps the in-room management as individuals, not as staff members. Again, looking to each individual to manage that within the room. Thank you for pointing out those microphones. Thank you.
Any other questions for the executive director? Yes, please.
Yes, I guess I'd just like some clarity. Is it best practice for elected officials on Zoom to keep their cameras on during the meeting, or does that slow down the feed?
We did have that was discussed in several of the committee meetings as I was presenting the meeting etiquette over the past couple of weeks. It would be ideal. It would not necessarily inhibit the bandwidth for the COG, but sometimes those participating remotely on slow internet connections at home may find it works better with their camera turned off. The feedback that we heard, not the audio feedback, but the comments from some of the elected officials in committee meetings was that it sure communicates a sense that one is participating and engaged in the meeting if their camera is on and people are paying attention to the meeting clearly. But that's not always possible when someone is, maybe at home recovering from an illness or in a situation where bandwidth is not good. So we have not written some of these more recent technology-related items into the articles of agreement because they've only come up in the past year. But those are good things to continue to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Right. In general, all things equal, yes. But we have certainly experienced where people online were cutting out and everything like that, and turning the camera off. It does help with that. And I think if everybody's aware of that, because at the end of the day, that's the problem. The COG staff is good, but they can't control the technology environment of every member that's remote, and that has come in challenge many times. To the point, the expectation that the experience there with variables that staff can't control isn't necessarily fair to COG staff to try to overcome and everything. So we all need to be cognizant of it and work forward.
When you say that, so do you mean, for example, if some general forum members are being demanding about everybody having their camera on, it may not be appropriate because somebody, say, in a less affluent, wired area, maybe a rural area of one of the townships, might not have access. So the idea that some elected officials would be making those individuals feel bad and then having them try to put their camera on, but they can't really put the camera on, and then there's some sort of additional miscommunication that's somehow staff's fault. I guess there's a lot to unpack in terms of this, but the message that's been given to me repeatedly about participation by virtual participants is that if you don't have your camera on, we don't really trust that you're paying attention. And I think that that's a very unfortunate message to have been sent to individuals. So if that's correct, I I mean, if others have received that, maybe be careful, we should be careful about sending that message.
Certainly. Mr. Marlowe?
You will not get that message from me.
Very good. Any other questions for the executive director? Very good. COG Articles of Agreement. Again, Mr. Norfolk.
Thank you. One of the other things we look at and remind ourselves of at the beginning of each year are the purposes for each of our COG organizations, all of our committees and such, and now tonight the general forum. In your packet is a list of the duties that are identified in the COG Articles of Agreement. I'll hit a couple of the high points and open that up in case there's any discussion on any of the items. The general forum duties include adopting the budget for the next fiscal year, resolving membership and participation questions, acting on amendments to the Articles of Agreement, adopting a personnel policy, position classification plan, an employee evaluation program, and potentially to ratify a local emergency or disaster emergency declaration. These are some of the things that have or will be done in the past year. So I highlighted those, but potentially, there are other things there that you should be aware of, including what's coming up later this evening to install the vice chair and chair-elect as in the next item. Are there any questions?
Questions for the executive director on the Articles of Agreement? Mr. Heath.
One specific question on the ratification of the budget. I'm not sure if ratification is the right word that I just used. So there's been some significant discussion about, for example, the back and forth voting that individual participating municipalities do, dependent on whether they do or don't participate, and then also dependent on how the articles are written. So, for example, Harris Township has their own fire company, so they don't participate in fire, but they do vote on that budget. So is the interpretation that was given by Solicitor Terry Williams that kind of directed how that voting occurs, is it really based on this clause in the Articles of Agreement that talks about how it was specifically the general forum that is involved in the ratification of the budget? So I just want to suggest that maybe with the current situation at the COG, the future diversification of offerings and program participants, that it might be something to think about in terms of the Articles of Agreement to have that budget being voted on by participating members of each agency, of each program of the COG, as opposed to specifically the wording of the general forum. I think that would, I've discussed it individually with some of my board members, and just, as we talk about simplification of our structure in order to provide better and better services in a very straightforward and understandable way, it might be beneficial to take a look at this document and see how we can achieve that through a few word changes, and we'll align our voting practices with our operational practices. So just some thoughts. Nothing to solve tonight, but just some thoughts on the matter. Thank you.
Any other questions for the executive director on the Articles of Agreement? Very good. Seeing nor hearing none, we will continue on. Nomination of officers. Okay. The COG Articles of Agreement require that the general forum annually select a chair and vice chair, and that they will serve from the organizational meeting and hold the office until the next organizational meeting. The agreements do not call out for a specific rotation of chairs, however, the general forum took action in 1999 to formalize a rotation schedule. For 2023, the State College Borough is to serve as the COG chair, and Half Moon Township is to serve as the vice chair under that agreement. As such, included in your packet is that the general forum, as recommended by the executive committee, appoint Jesse Barlow as chair and Ron Cervello as vice chair of the Center Region Council of Governments for a term beginning January 23rd, 2023, and ending with the General Forum's first meeting during January 2024.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you all for your confidence, and I'll do my best not to blow it. My first item is a pleasure. I would like to recognize the person next to me, Mr. Rich Frank, for his contributions to the Center Region COG as his chair from January 24th of last year to today. Mr. Frank is invited to share his perspective on COG's journey through 2022, which I understand was a very interesting year.
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you to all my peers for your support over the past year. I've used one adage often lately: a lot is expected of a local elected official, even more is expected of a Center Region elected official. I'm adopting a new variation of another one, that democracy is messy. Democracy in the COG can be even more so. Over the past year, we certainly had some challenges, but time and time again, we found our way through. The work is never done, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you, chair or not, for the remainder of my term. A special thank you to last year's executive committee. We certainly had some interesting discussions, but always with the goal of moving the COG and the Center Region forward. Finally, to COG staff, thank you. You're the best. I encourage all of my peers to get to know and work with our COG staff better. We all know how much we value our individual municipal staffs. We couldn't do what we do without them. That is just as true for our COG staff, with the twist that they have to try to keep everybody across all the municipalities happy. Great folks who truly care and give everything they've got for the Center Region. I've enjoyed working with you all year, and I look forward to the newest adventures.
I see Mr. Sort of a goodbye bag, but it's not entirely goodbye because you're going to be here
Yes.
for this year. And those are thank you and recognition for the excellent service that you've done to the COG over the years. Now, the next item is new agenda items. Members may request that new items of business be added to the meeting's agenda. If approved by a majority vote of the members, the proposed new agenda items will be placed on the agenda at the discretion of the chair. Are there any new agenda items that anyone wishes to propose? Seeing none, we move on to the consent agenda. There are three items here: the approval of two sets of minutes, resolution on record disposition, and the list of general forum meeting dates. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda, Mr. Chair.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, and I guess the second was roll calls. Any discussion? Well, actually, it shouldn't be. It's a consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? Motion passes unanimously. Now, next year, with confirmation of Alpha Fire Company command officers, and I'm also going to, after we vote on this, I'm going to let Mr. Kaufman present the activity report as well. Sean Kaufman, our Emergency Management Coordinator and Fire Director, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jesse. I want to take the opportunity to tonight to give you a little bit of information about the elected Alpha Fire Company officers who serve as your command officers in the community that is served by the Alpha Fire Company. The 3 officers that we need to confirm tonight, the Fire Chief Jason Troop lives in Patton Township, is a 20-plus year volunteer with the Alpha Fire Company, and is serving his final year of his 6-year term as Fire Chief. So this will be the last year that Jason will be able to be confirmed as the Fire Chief. The first Assistant Chief this year elected was Buck Harpster, a Ferguson Township resident, 18-plus years of volunteer service to the Alpha Fire Company. It was newly elected to this position of First Assistant Chief, has 12 years of experience as a company-level officer. The second Assistant Chief, Tony Barina, resident of Gatesburg, Ferguson Township, 19-plus year volunteer with the Alpha Fire Company, is newly elected to the second Assistant Chief. He just served his term limit at First Assistant Chief, and so he was re-elected as a second Assistant Chief, so he stayed in the officers' ranks. He has 15 years' experience as a company-level officer. These are the 3 individuals that need confirmed by the 4 municipalities participating in the COG Fire Protection Program.
Right.
I'll make a motion that the general forum appoints the following individuals to the positions of Fire Chief and Assistant Fire Chiefs for 2023. First Assistant Chief Buck Harpster, Chief Jason Troop, First Assistant Chief Buck Harpster, and Second Assistant Chief Tony Barina.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Thank you.
Okay, Harrison Halfmoon should abstain from voting on this item. Any discussion from the public? All in favor, say aye.
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 All any opposed? Nay? Then it passes unanimously. Municipal appointment to PA COG, Mr. Norton.
My activity report doesn't.
Sorry, activity report. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's all right.
I got you up there for all that.
We just went over that at the beginning of the meeting, so.
I put that on so I didn't have to get up. I'm on the agenda 2 other times, but I wanted to make sure that I kind of could control the mic for a little while. But just real quick, the additional officers for the Alpha Fire Company, appointed officers, safety officer Sven Peterson from Patton Township, captains Chris Williams, College Township, Randy Clouser, College Township, Rob Neese, College Township, Lieutenant Stan Kearney, who's a live-in in our borough fire station, Claudia Rodisell, who's a live-in our borough fire station, and James Pletcher, a live-in at our College Township fire station, and Patrick McGinn, Patton Township resident. The administrative officers, President Sven Peterson of Patton Township, Vice President Chris Williams, College Township. The secretaries, Brian Bittner, Ferguson Township. Treasurers, Ron Whitmer, College Township. Financial secretaries, John D'Amico of Ferguson Township. The directors are Joe Wirtz from Patton Township, Andy Richards from Patton Township, and Matt Dale, who lives now in Potter Township, moved out of the region but still serves. And then I want to say a special thank you to the 93 Alpha volunteers. We had the highest run total in the history of the Alpha Fire Company in 2022, 1,386 incidents, the highest number we've ever recorded. And specifically the last 10 days of December, we had 64 incidents in the last 10 days of the year, mostly due to that cold snap. That holiday weekend, Friday through Monday, 46 of those incidents occurred over the holiday, and they were handled by the Alpha volunteers. The extreme weather also impacted our facilities. First, we had a roof leak at Patton Township building due to the snow buildup, and then that thaw we had right before the freeze. We had some ice damming that caused the collapse of the roof in our kitchen. The volunteers cleaned up that mess and created fortunately from their training, then they know how to overhaul water, created a diversion to capture that water. We had a failure in our generator in the borough station that caused an alarm that needed to be repaired. And then we also had a failure in a spring to our what is a monstrous front garage door. which caused us to have to turn our apparatus around, relocate some apparatus, and go out the back door of the borough station. Not an easy feat to do a three-point turn of our rescue truck in the middle of the apparatus bay. So if you ever want to see a real circus, you can come visit us during that when we have to do that, and we've had to do that many times. Now, the water leak at Patton Township and the door at the borough are both on the capital improvement plans and are in front of the facilities committee at this current time. So those two items are underway to be repaired, items that we have that we're looking to do here in the near future. Also, the full report of our membership, the incident breakdowns by municipalities will be available to the Public Safety Committee in February. So we'll make sure that the representatives on the Public Safety Committee provide that information to each of the municipalities, how many runs were in each of the municipalities and how many hours were served by the volunteers. So that's my activity report. Any questions?
Questions from anyone? Don't see any hands up anywhere. Thank you very much, Sean, and you only have to get up one more time today. Next item is municipal appointment to PA COG. Mr. Norton.
Thank you. The Pennsylvania Association of Councils of Governments has been an association for COGs for quite some time, and for many years, Mr. Bud Graham has been the delegate from the COG, and he agreed to be reappointed last year for one last year, hoping that someone would succeed him in that role. About halfway through 2022, the PA COG found out that their longtime support staff would be retiring, and PA COG is right now in kind of a transition mode, and so there hasn't been much activity, but at some point, hopefully the support will kind of reactivate the organization along with the board and begin meetings again. So at some point, we will need to appoint a delegate who is an elected official to be a delegate to the PA COG, and I will continue to serve as the alternate. But if we're not prepared to do that tonight, it could be deferred until a later point when we have a little bit more understanding of what is going on with the transition. And I think Bud has a little bit to add, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, yes,
Mr. Graham, go ahead.
Well, at this point, basically, there is no PA COG. As we said, our executive director resigned, and she was also employed by the Pennsylvania Association of Boroughs, who basically sponsored the PA COG, and she was also employed by them, and they have withdrawn their sponsorship. So basically, at this time, there is no official PA COG. Hopefully, I had a phone call into a person earlier this week, and they referred me someplace else, and I called today, and they weren't available. I can't think of her name, who is the executive director of PA COG. Maybe someone from the borough knows who that is. Christian somebody. She's going to call me back to see what alternatives would be, but they're no longer. It was a financial. They shared part of the financial burden of the PA COG. They decided not to do this. So until something happens, the rest of the PA COG, I myself and two other people are on an official group to explore things, but nothing's happened. And until we find out if anybody joins, I don't think they've sent out notices to join yet. So I'll find this, if she calls me back tomorrow or the next day, they'll send notices out, see who pays dues, see who's paying dues. Then we can see who actually will be part of the COG and go from there. It's unfortunate. They've just been an orphan for so many years. We've tried to go through PSAS. PSAS doesn't. I don't know how to put this. Doesn't really. They aren't too favorable towards COGs. Let's put it this way. My suspicion is that it's a little bit of a competition for them. So I don't know this. So I would suspect maybe we just put on hold or table or what we need to do until maybe we can find something in a couple more months where PA COGs are going to go. If there was some concerned, or maybe they go with PML, but I don't know if PML is interested either, so. Until PA COG can either go on their own with funding and hire executive director and some help, probably nothing will happen. But I gotta think about it until later this summer. I will follow up on it, and then if it comes a time we need to appoint somebody, I guess we'll bring that back.
Mr. Graham, I have a question. Are you making a motion to table this?
I'll make a motion to table.
Second. A motion to table, usually you don't have discussion and you just vote. So I'll just say all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any opposed? Say nay.
And there was a parliamentary procedures brought up to me. There has to be a motion on the floor before we table. Is that true?
Well, then, how about we make the motion to table?
What motion should I make? I mean.
Yeah, there's nobody there.
I'll make the motion that making, I don't know how you want to say it. I move that we appoint a representative to the PA COG at some future time. I guess that would be my motion. And then we'll take it.
Now you're moving to table, and you have your second, and I'm just going to deem that the table motion is passed.
Well, it's a moot point at this point. So.
Yes, I think it is. All right. Solar power purchase agreement update. This is to be presented by Ms. Del Corso. Is she online?
Fair show. And I'm just going to do this, Jesse.
I am. Oh, Pam. Yes, go ahead, Pam.
Yep, sorry, Danelle was intending to present tonight, but she woke up not feeling well, so I am here presenting, and then Joe, I believe, is in the room also to answer any questions. So I'm going to share my screen and present information to you. And does it look correct? Everybody can see my screen, correct? Betsy, can you, yep, okay. So tonight, I'm going to give you an overview. The last presentation the General Forum received was in November, in which time we were hoping to get that ball rolling. It's complicated with 15 entities and trying to have negotiations, so we're back to try to get you prepared for what is coming in February to each of your boards with a very high likelihood. I'm going to talk about the why and who really quickly, since we've gone over that multiple times, and spend more time tonight on the what and how. So the why, as most of you have seen this before, are listed here for people who are new to this, but it will be available on our slideshow. But basically, we're looking at economic benefits, environmental benefits, and health and well-being for communities. The what, we have our SPPA working group. We have 15 entities. And then we list the project management team over there on the right. Again, I'm just going to flip through those. If there's any questions, please raise your hand and we can answer them. Here, I like to show these images. I updated them from the November meeting, but basically, the World Resource Institute is tracking what local governments across the nation are doing regarding clean energy procurement. And so you can see that graph on the top, as far as the off-site physical PPAs, there's 419 across the country. So you should understand that this is new, but you're not alone. Other local governments are doing that. And you can see the map on the right show all the different activities. And you can see that there are different solar activities across the country. The blue dots are the SPPAs. If you want to zoom into the Pennsylvania map, you can see there are 3 solar PPAs. Those are those blue dots there. Chambersburg Electric Department has a SPPA about 19 megawatts. Philadelphia, and then SEPTA. Those are the 3 in Pennsylvania. That other one up there is New Jersey, actually. So what's important here is that those are all individual entities. And so what's really less common is a group of 15 working together to do an SPPA. So that's really leadership that you're all demonstrating by participating in this process. And it really could be a guide for how smaller communities can get that economy of scale and take advantage of this type of project. So kudos to all of you. This is the process as to where we are. We are still in that fourth phase of negotiating the contract. The starred items are where we are working right now. We have 2 PPAs that are under review, and we want to keep both of those to leverage negotiation. We do have a retail contract that's sort of that traditional commodity purchase agreement, but also the PPA management services. And our consultant has done the commercial review for those documents. And right now I'm about to start the legal review. So once that is done, then we will be able to give that information to the boards for them to be able to evaluate, along with hopefully getting close to selecting that final solar project. So what we're talking about, and I talked about this in November, I just want to make sure everybody's clear on it. We did release a request for proposal back in September to solicit quotes for a solar array. We got a price per megawatt hour. We did receive 4 responses, 3 for solar projects and 1 for retail services. So in total, we had 9 solar projects to choose from. We have narrowed that down to 6. Those 6 are all in Pennsylvania, and our solar term that we're looking at for those 6 are 15 years with the option to extend it to 20, 25 years. That's what the solar part of it is. For the retail service term that's going to take care of our grid, traditional electricity, that contract will be 3 to 5 years. So this is the how. Where we currently are in this negotiating these contract terms, and working with 15 entities is very complicated for negotiation. So when we listed out the RFP, we told those solar developers that we want between 50 and 100% of our usage of electricity to go to solar. Big range. They came back with 6 projects, some of which are 8 megawatts, some are 20, there's a couple in between. So we need to now define a better volume, because that will help us select the developer and select the project, which allows us to get to that final price. So it is a bit of a chicken and egg problem when we have 15 entities. If we start disclosing prices now, that could not help us with negotiations. So we're in a tricky spot, but we think we're collecting a lot of information to help you figure out, to give and define an initial volume. It's not any contract, you're not setting your final numbers, but you're trying to help us get there. So basically, what we want to relay is that the prices that we have received are competitive. So we're getting price competitive with what future market prices are, and that will give us budget certainty. The solar PPA is at a fixed price, so it's going to be fixed price over those 15 years with a 1.5 escalator. And when we say fixed, as I've described before, solar only operates when there's sunshine, so we still will having some grid purchases when it's nighttime. And so there's this settlement mismatch cost, but that difference in the fixed price is really only a plus or minus 5%. So that it's basically a fixed price for that 15 years. And we're working on making sure that any of this variability and risk is low. If you're not going to purchase 100% solar, then you've got traditional grid electricity, which we will be working with the retail service provider, and we'll go into a contract for 3 to 5 years, and you will have the option as to whether you're fixing it, whether you do variable, whether you just stick with the market. That is going to be an option. And as we've said before, the electric bill is going to look similar, except now you're going to have this section on solar, and that information will be in there. And we do intend to be able to show you a bill once we can have sort of those prices. So what we have learned is, if your goal of your entity, your organization, is really just based on lowest prices, then you're probably looking closer to the lower end. That 50% of usage covered at the fixed price PPA is prudent. And that's because you're willing to work with what the future market's going to be, and it will align more with just keeping your prices closer to below market. If you have carbon goals or a preference for budget certainty, because you're going to fix your price with a PPA, your solar volume commitment should be in the 75 to 100% range. We were hoping to share some numbers and some graphs of, I'll say hypotheticals, but pretty realistic hypotheticals, but we have pulled those today because it was giving away too much information. And so we were asked to wait on that for negotiation purposes. But we know people want prices. We do want to share some information, but we think we're going to be ready to give them to you in February. So what I just put up here is to remind people who have, and I'm sure you already know, that there are regional and municipal targets. And I'm not going to go through all these here, but they do exist. And what I will point out is if you, looking at our SPPA, if we get the expected participation, which I'm saying maybe is 60%, right? Not 100% from the whole group, but if we say 60%, and we also add in the UAJ solar installation, which is in the center region. So we're basically looking at local government. That impact on our greenhouse gas emission reduction will be 2% for total community emissions. So it is significant. It also is demonstrating leadership for pathways for others. So it can meet our sustainability goals, and we do believe that it's fiscally responsible. So while we don't have prices shared yet, we do believe that they're coming and that they are going to be below or at wholesale grid supply where we currently are. We are looking and going to be able to hopefully demonstrate with different graphs what those risks are and how to minimize those. We'll provide you with a bill of what it will look like. Each entity will have its own separate agreement. So I just want to make sure you understand you're going to have your own contract. It's going to be mostly the same for solar, and then you'll also have your choices on how you want to manage your grid electricity. Assuming that we're going to proceed, that solar array will start around the fall of 2024, or it could be June 2026, somewhere in that range, depending on which project we picked. And we know everybody has current electricity agreement terms, and we've been working with every organization to get those, but it will align with when yours ends to pick up this one. So the last slide here is what the next steps are. The items in blue are what we are hoping for, and obviously if we can't provide the numbers and the prices, then things could move. But in January 25th, so on Wednesday, we're meeting with the Solar Power Working Group, and we're going to give a presentation, maybe a little bit more information we'll have by then, to have them start to ask their boards to determine volume. And again, it's this initial volume. A lot of groups gave ranges between 60 and 85 or 50 and 100, and we just need you to narrow it down or determine that you're out, you're not interested. February 2nd, the SPPA working group will meet again. We believe the legal review of the contract will be over so that we'll be closer to selecting that proposal, sharing contracts, and referring it to the individual boards. So then for the month of February, the boards will review and get information. For COG, we'll start with the facilities committee, going into more detail on risk and pricing, hopefully at least price estimates, if not prices, to make a recommendation on what the volume should be for COG. February 9th, finance can talk about it, climate action and sustainability can talk about it. Both of them provide input so that by the end of the month at the general forum, as well as all individual boards, will be wanting to submit their volume determination. Again, this is the initial volume of what if this pricing information is meets your fiscal responsibility and what your climate responsibilities are, then you will turn in an amount that you would like to be part of the SPPA. That will allow final negotiations to occur so that that best and final price will be available so that in March, the boards can go through and review the final contract with the ability to start awarding contracts by the end of March 31st. So those are the next steps. I will stop sharing, and then if there's any questions, we can answer them, Joe or myself.
Thank you for that presentation, and I just want to point out item D in the matters of record about the exchange that Pam will be participating in Kuala Lumpur later this year. And I really appreciate that's really a very great accomplishment. Any questions? Ms. Danini.
Thank you, Ed, too. First about the next step slide, I guess I'm still confused about like what numbers will be asked for through the general forum COG entity and then what through the municipal boards. Like you said facilities and finance committee, but then also on that slide was individual boards, and then also you said that like we each have to sign. Is that for our own municipality or also our part in the COG? So I guess I'm a little bit confused about that, if you could clarify that. And then the other question is about staffing now and later. So I guess, you know, us signing on to this, that number represents a lot of operations and decisions. So what percentage of your staff time is being dedicated to this project right now in the COG? What percentage do you envision in the future in terms of getting COG? And when I say COG, I mean the larger COG that includes other entities that actually aren't COG, like the Park Authority. So like 87% of our capital budget last year was parks, right? That's not really part of COG. So what percentage of your staff time will be devoted to those entities to achieve those goals, if any? And then also what percentage of your COG staff time will be given to each of the individual municipalities to help us meet our goals? So when we're goal setting, we can guide our ambition based on how much staff time we're going to be given from the region that has hired staff and it has staff, whereas we don't have staff. So those are the two questions then. The timeline for decisions, what part of that is COG entities and what part of that is municipal entities? And then the other question, what COG staff time will be available for COG and the COG entities that are affiliates? And what percentage of COG staff time will be available for the municipalities? Thanks.
I think the first question was about the approval process versus individual municipalities versus the COG level. I think you want to do that first, Pam.
Perfect. I'm going to just share my screen because I do recognize that's a little confusing. So I did mix them together, Laura. So basically, the February 7th through 27th describes the general forum, the COG process. The general forum will approve an initial volume number after the committee discussion. On February 2nd, the working group representative, for example, Ferguson Township, will be asked to take the proposal. Well, first they'll be given the volume information, this kind of presentation that they have to determine volume. And then a week later, they'll be asked to do the proposal, which is basically kicking off the month of February. So we think the timing, they'll basically take both back to their boards with the information on here's what the contract says. We'll provide them with a standard presentation. That information goes to your municipal board, and ideally by the end of the month, you will be able to submit what your initial volume is. And you might currently be, I think COGS was 50 to 93, I'll say. We might be like, well, we're 65 to 75. So what we're looking for is, in the RFP, we said 50 to 100. if it turns out that we have people dropping out, or if we get below that 50%, that allows the developer to potentially change their price. And so we're basically trying to narrow the range, but make sure we're above 50, because then we know we keep the price. So does that answer that first part of the question? And here, you are not signing anything, you are just saying, we are still interested, and we believe we are now going to be interested in putting in 75% of our electricity. Could be 100%, it could be 50%.
So then the municipality, like, buying that much of their electricity, like, how does that then happen? Do you assist us in then doing that, or are there things that we have to do to get us to that point? That relates to that staff time question. So you don't even really have to answer that question.
Eric was on the working group, and now Dave Modrecker is. And so basically, Dave knows how much electricity you have, and he actually asked the question about, because you have a solar array now. So the consultant, the project management team can help, but basically you're looking at your total annual usage that you had for 2022, and I believe your solar array was operating. And again, we spoke to Dave about this, and so what percent do you want to put into solar that remains of electricity that you're using? And so we can help. I don't think it's going to be overly complicated. As far as staff time, we have said we will come to boards and do presentations from the project management team. We've already gotten some asks on that. The school district, perhaps, CATA, the borough, State College Borough, and Harris Township have already asked for presentations, so we're happy to do that if the boards need that. And as far as the amount of staff time I've been putting into this, I don't know if that's really what you're looking for. It's increased. I'd say on average, it's normally about 10%. Now it's probably up to 20% because we're getting into this final stages. But in the future, after we get past March, I'm not expecting it to be that intensive, because it's basically looking at our total energy that is being used. So that includes the parks, the code, all of the COG, SCLO, fire. We're just taking the total and allocating a percent to solar.
All right, thanks, Pam. Thanks for helping with that.
Thank you, Pam. Anybody else have any questions? Go ahead, Lisa.
Thanks, Pam, for all the information. I just had a question about the contracts. You said each municipality will sign their own individual contract. When would each board expect to receive either maybe an outline or a draft of that contract?
So we are expecting legal, tonight the school district, we're hoping, is approving legal, their solicitor, a new solicitor, I'll say, to review this, that has experience in it, that they've done some background. They found a solicitor that they are comfortable with, and they're making a recommendation tonight. So if that happens, they will get the contracts tomorrow. And then once they're done, we're hoping that would be done by February 2nd. So at that working group meeting, your representative would be given the contract. And as we've done in the past, we might do one of those fact sheets that goes out with it to help each representative. But the draft contract will definitely, well, assuming legal review goes as planned, a draft contract with perhaps an outline, sort of the key points, will be available February 2nd at the beginning of the month, so that you have the month to review it at each municipal level.
Yes, Ms. Wilson.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, Pam, should a municipality find something that they don't particularly agree with in that contract, who would those comments be referred to then? Would those go back to the school board? Can you just help me with the process?
Yeah, it's a good point, and we will make sure that we clearly know that by February 2nd. But my guess is that we will have it funnel through one or two of us so that we organize them appropriately, but that is the purpose of February, to sort of get that list of where we want our consultant to go back and the push point so that we can get a contract that the group is satisfied with, right? It's going to be a group effort, but we will feed it through. I'm sure the school district I know they're the lead, so it will go through them, but whether you're sending it, we will let you know what that process is.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and to have that prepared ahead of time so that our comments don't get lost in the black hole.
Correct.
Other questions about this process? I know it will be moving along, and I appreciate the progress that has been made on it, as I've seen it from the beginning. And I know we got stalled a lot by the pandemic, like just about everything did. But I'm pleased to see this moving along and coming to fruition at this point. Now we have to ask Sean Kaufman to get up again for the Center Region Penn State Emergency Management Agreement. In a certain sense, this has been 100 years in the making.
Yeah. So thank you. I'm putting on my emergency management hat and ask you to approve the agreement between Center Region and Penn State. This was on the agenda initially in November. At the last minute, we pulled it off because there were some boilerplate items that Penn State wanted to add to it. There was no content changes in terms of the agreement. The agreement started in 2002. It's been in existence and modified several times. There were some changes made to the agreement this time, mostly around how we were paying for services. We used to be billed annually by Penn State for basically standby services, having an EOC in partnership with Penn State and paying for like phone connections and things like that. And it was really kind of messy because we never anticipate using this EOC, and it was kind of a multi-purpose function for the EOC anyhow, so it wasn't set up what we call hot, meaning ready to go. We have to set it up when we need it. And so we felt it was better that we would receive a bill when we use the EOC. So that's the relationship this new agreement has in it. If there's a EOC activation, we would then pay for any services that we use while utilizing the EOC. And the best thing about that is the EOC is mostly used during major disasters, and hopefully there's a presidential declaration with that and reimbursement that can go with that. So it's a win-win for us, I think, in terms of our the agreement, and we aren't paying annually for those services. And then there is a change in the agreement that we will pay annually for our use of our disaster land service, which is a website, web-based service for information sharing and data collection, and it makes it a little cleaner how we're going to, basically pay for that in the agreement. So, not a lot of major changes in our partnership with Penn State, but some clarifications which needed a new agreement, and that's what I'm asking for approval of. Any questions?
There is a motion there. Would someone like to make the motion?
So moved. Betsy Whitman.
Betsy Whitman, second.
Second.
Mr. Marshall,
I
second.
have a question, Mr. Chair.
Now, yes, discussion. Go ahead, Ron.
Sean, where are the primary and alternate locations for Emergency Operations Center?
So
Specifically?
the primary location is Beaver Stadium. It's a relationship with them with their, if you know the Stadium Gate B and the police station, it's converted into an EOC, and the alternate location is Eisenhower Parking Deck in the former police station. And then they're actually in the process of building a new location and updating a facility in USB, University Support Service Building. And that location will probably be the alternate in the future.
Any other questions or comments? Any comments from the public? Well, the reason I said 100 years is that what we had in the past was a handshake agreement, and that handshake agreement dates back to, what is it, 1922?
Oh, that's for the other one we're working on, Jesse.
Oh, that's the other one. No, this is not that, okay.
Yeah, this one's
Oh,
different.
that's the other one, okay. I've got to keep my agreements.
But that one is, that one's a long time.
That was a long time, so this is a more recent one. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and the next item is also going to be presented by Mr. Coughlin. It is on threat ID purchase and budget amendment.
Great, thank you. So I'll switch hats. This is the fire department side, and in late last year, the fire department was looking to purchase a threat ID material analyzer for the hazmat team. This purchase was slated to be done using what I'll call surplus funds from emergency responses that occurred in 2022. There was a fund balance that was available to purchase this device. The device actually has been on the radar since 2018. We've made many attempts to try to purchase the device through other grants and funds available, even through the Rescue Recovery Act monies that were available during COVID, and we're unsuccessful doing that. So the opportunity came up because of the fund balance from the emergency responses that were made in 2022 to purchase the device, which cost nearly $90,000. There's also a pledge from the Center County District Attorney's Office for $10,000 because the device can be used for law enforcement efforts when trying to identify chemicals, specifically illicit drugs like fentanyl. So the device can be used by the district attorney to help prosecute cases. So that particular item is up for purchase, and we need a budget amendment because we didn't purchase it in 2022 and there's not a specific budget for it in 2023. Joe had asked me to bring it forward as a budget amendment for purchase. So like I said, the item has been something that we've been looking for many years. We are replacing an outdated a machine that basically is at its end of life, that's already owned by the hazmat team, and there's a device that's owned by the second certified hazmat team in Center County, and one by the Altoona Fire Department hazmat team that kind of complement the device that we're looking to buy. So between the three teams, we'll have the equipment needed to identify unknown substances. Any questions?
I guess I have a question about where it's falling in the budget. Because you just said that the district attorney was giving some for potential use in terms of, so that's more of a public safety, I don't know, I guess if it falls under fire, then that excludes some people from participating in buying it, but yet it might be used.
Yeah, so the funds that are going to be used to purchase it were recovered when we billed for hazmat services last year. So we never planned for hazmat response, right? But when we do, we bill for those services. So it was a revenue source that was unanticipated. So it's not really coming from any particular municipalities. It was fund balance that's available to us in the budget because of the billing for hazmat services. So I don't know if Joe might be able to explain that in a little more detail. Does that make sense, Joe? That's basically there. Okay.
You come from municipal sources?
Okay.
So it's not coming from specific municipal contributions. It's coming from the revenues from billing for the hazmat services last year.
Thank you.
Mr. Mini?
Thanks, I have a question related to that. When you bill for those, that's based on response.
Right.
Do the participants in the fire service in Alpha, the 4 member municipalities that fund that, are they billed for responses? Also, like if a response was in their community, they'd be billed as much as somebody that doesn't contribute to that fire.
The billing only occurs when a responsible party is identified. So if a trucking company spills something, we identify them as a responsible party and we would bill them. So if somebody spills something in your municipality on, let's say, one of your township roads, and we cannot identify who that is, we do not bill the municipality.
Gotcha. So do you anticipate that there would never be a need for any kind of a capital budget? in hazmat. Here's why I'm asking, I don't know if everybody around the table realizes this, we touched briefly on it in another committee meeting. For us here at COG, this is a new program. And it was housed in fire because operationally speaking, the fire department is usually deploying the equipment that relate to hazmat's cleanup, so we can understand that operationally. But if Alpha is utilizing that and deploying it for example, the Bollesburg Fire Department and other fire departments, in terms of our region here, if we did anticipate a capital budget being necessary, one would anticipate, just because operationally it fits with fire, it would fit maybe funding-wise better in emergency management. So while we adopted this program, we eased it into fire. I think now is the time where we want to be a little bit more strategic about our choices in how many around this table would fund capital investment should it be necessary, because it's a brand new program and we haven't really talked about that at all, right? It was just popped there. So it's good to know that at this point, there are funds available to purchase this piece of equipment, but I would be very interested in a strategic assessment of, if anticipated, it would be that always a hazmat funding is going to be covered by response. And I would anticipate the answer would be no, because this, something like the connector happens, we become part of the I-roads in a very high level that a lot of people don't really understand yet. We're probably gonna have a lot more response. So I don't know if we're gonna be able to be billable on those, because I don't know the refined who's billable, like where's the placard, all of that business. So my point is, here, around this table, we wouldn't wanna see just 4 of the 6 members then taking that on without a lot of thought, deliberate thought. We'd wanna see all 6 of our members around this table taking that on, and maybe it being housed in emergency management. So, thanks.
So I totally understand your question. Right now, we are,
Now it's great.
from the fund balance standpoint within the budget, we do have a separate item that is hazmat, correct, Joe? In terms of fund balance.
Vote, but in the voting, it's no Harris, no Half Moon, so I know that somewhere in the crazy convoluted, yes, no, you do, you don't, you get the benefits, but you don't, all of that, I know that in this case, those 4 would eventually be responsible for the capital investment.
Right, and it even gets more convoluted because we get funding from the county government. So, yes, there is a lot of moving parts here, and I totally understand why you're concerned about that. So I think from the standpoint of this particular purchase, I just want to make sure we're on the right, everybody understands where it's coming from within the budget.
Yep, absolutely, and totally fair.
Yeah, and just want to be clear within there, we are running a separate cost center underneath the fire budget to track hazmat revenue and expenditures. So we can see the revenues and expenses in the fund balance rolling forward, just as we do in some of the capital budgets. For instance, in the fire capital budget, we keep a running fund balance for both the buildings and the capital funds accumulated for that, as well as the ones for the apparatus.
I really do appreciate that. I definitely am speaking from a political point of view, because you have yet to hear anybody volunteer, right, to join that, right, or to broaden that, right? You've heard one member who's going to be on the hook saying, can others be, right? So I'll just say politically is where I'm at, and I appreciate what you're saying, so thank you.
Right, and there won't be any expenditures that don't go through that process of public safety and finance, and so right now, like what Joe said, we're capturing them so everybody understands the cost, but going forward, its own capital budget to understand what does the budget cost the municipalities in the future. I totally agree with you. I am just too new to give you the answers to that tonight.
I think you've answered my question. Even though Harris and Half Moon aren't voting, this device will be available to the 17 departments in the county?
Yes. So this device will be available to anybody who duly dispatches us to an incident. So the actual funds that are probably major part of this purchase came from an incident that occurred in Harris Township. It was a hazmat incident that was billed, so I can't give you the exact breakdown of where the funds came from, but we do respond outside the center region with the hazmat team. And because of some other funding opportunities through the task force, we also are obligated sometimes to respond outside the county. And just like I mentioned before about the other certified team in Center County, we also get support from Altoona with their fire department hazmat team because some of their funding comes through the task force as well.
Is there more county money than the 10,000 from the DA office?
Yeah, so there's grants available to the county to support hazmat teams. Annually, we get money from the county. It may range, but I can tell you like $5,000 is a regular number that comes in every year. That's not a lot, but it's a certain amount of money that comes.
Secondary kind of routing into you. Okay, thank you.
And that can change depending on what they're able to grant to us, but it's a long, drawn out process to explain that.
I guess I actually did this in the wrong order. There's a motion there. Does anyone wish to make the motion?
So moved. Second.
Any more discussion or questions on this item?
Yes.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry, Mr. Belishando.
No worries. I was curious, I noticed that it cited the part of the backup that's not uncommon. I'm kind of wondering like how often the Aurora system was used and how often the system. I'm not really sure.
So I can tell you less than a handful of times that this would be used. We do not want these incidents to occur. This is a specialized piece of equipment, and we own a lot of specialized equipment that we don't use. We train on it regularly, so the training is going to be more of a opportunity for people to put their hands on this piece of machinery. But the actual responses, I could probably get that information for you. I don't have it for the Aurora, in terms of the number of times it was used. I can tell you if you're familiar with when anthrax letters were a very common threat, it was used more often, and it becomes something that if it's being used for, say, illicit drug identification, it'll probably be more common. But to give you an exact number, I don't have it. I apologize.
Anything else? Any input from the public? Seeing none, I guess we proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Now, the next thing is the university report. Ms. Young, please.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I just had a few quick updates. The first one is going to be about Mustard Gap. So we hired recently Michael Toulan to be the Mustard Gap Conservation Director. So he starts this month. And we're looking forward to him implementing or beginning the implementation stages of the first phase. We are looking for funding, and I think we've mentioned that before. So we are having conversations with foundations about individual support and other donor support. In addition to, we are talking to DCNR regarding community grants and their programs that they have. So we're continuing to work the plan. And I'm sure that it's going a little bit slower than we would like, but it's going. So I wanted you to know that the work is continuing, and we're continuing to work with Deb Nardone and Clearwater Conservancy on this project. The other thing I just wanted to mention was that we have rescheduled the reception with the president, and that save the date should be coming out to you this week, and I believe that's going to be May 9th. So when you get the save the date, please mark your calendars. Other than that, things are just moving along. I'm sure I'll be having some future updates that I'll send to you via email. And that's all for me for tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Any questions? Move on. State College Area School District. Is there anyone here from the school district? No. No, it doesn't look like it. All right. Whitehall Road Regional Project Coordination Team Report. Mr. Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For those not aware, at the January 17th COG Executive Committee, I was appointed to officially perform the role I've undertook since November as the elected liaison to the Whitehall Road Regional Park. Thank you to Mr. Abrams, Mr. Best, and Ms. Danini for also stepping forward to be considered for this role. As I've tried to do over my unofficial time, I hope to provide timely, accurate, and consistent information disseminated as widely as possible. Towards that, I requested of the executive committee that any elected inquiries about the project be channeled through me. I will triage, confirm what is being asked if needed, and answer based on my own knowledge of the project or seek the answer from the appropriate party involved in the project. Prioritization for me will be based on what helps keep the project moving forward towards completion with as few new bumps as possible. As I shared with the executive committee last Tuesday, the project team has shifted from an incredibly intensive information providing role leading up to the December 7th funding vote back to operations. That effort was necessary to inform that decision, but no question it resulted in a lot of work being set aside. So immediately thereafter, significant catch-up was and still is required. Reconstituting the team was also required because of staff changes and some of the shortcomings already identified since the project concerns came to light. No question, lessons to be learned abound, and I'm confident the executive committee will report on those when appropriate. The reconstituted project team has had 3 meetings over the last month and a half, with the 3rd occurring this morning. The first meeting acknowledged the shift I just shared about and focused on outputs back to the authority and the elected with the goal that no one has more info than the members of the authority, that the information is consistent and communicated widely and often. Matter of Record N is the first attempt at that. This morning we identified a couple tweaks and we welcome any others from the authority in this group after you've had an opportunity to review. The key takeaways are where we stand with regard to project completion, payments to contractors, and remaining funding after approved change orders and projections since the discussions leading up to our December 7th vote. Not indicated here, but should be understood, is that all invoices are current and will be paid within their terms unless a project-related reason not to, which will be reported as an exception. The second meeting focused on project operational elements, with the culmination being the first meeting with all the contractors since Mr. Bell's departure, which is tentatively scheduled for tomorrow. The meeting is tentatively scheduled for tomorrow. I will be attending tomorrow's meeting as an observer and will report on it at the February General Forum meeting. Today's meeting took a deeper dive into the focus of the previous 2 meetings. One other administrative note, the underlying issue between Musco Lighting and their subcontractor, which resulted in the subcontractor sending a notice of non-payment to protect their legal remedies to the 2 property owners, has been resolved by Musco. The issue wasn't the authority, the COGs, or Ferguson Townships to resolve. The COG staff did assist Musco in resolving timely. Pending any questions, Mr. Chair?
Any questions? Ms. Danini?
2 questions. First, our representative for executive committee, when they let us know that you had been appointed, Mr. Frank, they had mentioned that those meetings are open to the other elected officials and perhaps the public. My question would be, how can we get the schedule of those to attend those? And then my other question, it still relates to an outstanding question. I've asked it in the facilities and the finance, and it's related to I think it was a CoStar's purchase of the Musco lighting, tracking the costs of that, and then also helping us all understand, was it a CoStar's purchase? And then if it was a CoStar's purchase, how are their change orders for that? Because typically that's a locked-in price, and in 2020, the authority had locked that price in at $570,000. So just like if you could, so we could have understanding of like, was that CoStar's? And if it was CoStar's, doesn't that negate the need for change orders? And if there were other contracts that were issued, did the authority issue those contracts, or was it Musco? because, you know, like just helping us understand that, how that happened in particular. So those two questions, the dates of the meetings, how can we get those, and more of an explanation on the Musco CoStar / then its contracts with change orders thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, moving on to the Executive Director's Report, Mr. Nordenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In your packet are 3 items that are noted in item 18. One is the January activity report. Most of you know that we do a great agency report every month that highlights with photos and other information what has happened in the previous month. This one addresses some of the things and reflects some of the information Sean shared earlier, which you'll hear about in a few minutes from other agency directors. Next, we have a kind of a quick summary of major accomplishments from 2022, as well as a little bit of a prediction of things that we expect to be coming forward, being accomplished or worked on or brought to the general forum later this year by various agencies. So hopefully those last 2 items are going to be helpful as you think about what happened last year and what will be coming up this coming year. And myself or agency directors would be happy to answer questions of anything in those 3 documents. And then if there aren't, then we have 2 other agency director updates ready to go. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Nordenberg. Any questions about that? Moving on, agency director reports. Ms. Collins on the library.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen with everyone here, so just bear with me one moment. Okay, so everybody should have a chance right now to see my Center County Reads screen. And tonight what I wanted to do was to do 2 things. The first of which was that I wanted to highlight a program, and then I wanted to update you on the recent cold weather and its impact on the library building. But first, the fun one, the program, and that is Center County Reads. Staff from SCLO Library, our Center County Library Federation partner, PSU's Center for American Literary Studies, and the Pennsylvania Center for the Book comprise the Center County Reads Committee. And we also have partner support both with Webster's Cafe and also from the SCLO Library Foundation. But what exactly is Center County Reads? I want to go back and just kind of show you real quick some of the past reads that we've had. Everything really started in 2003, you'll see, with To Kill a Mockingbird. And Center County Reads is an effort to ensure that and also to encourage that all residents in Center County of all ages explore the human condition and also related issues by reading and discussing the same book or groups of books. The exciting thing is that we try to hit a really wide variety of different books, and as you can see as the years go along, as I scroll down my screen, we really have had something for everybody. What we usually try to do is, in addition to these adult materials, we also try to make sure that we have tie-ins with juvenile materials as well. And one of the things that's really exciting this year is that we've announced our Center County Reads book. And the book is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. And you can see that it's going to be quite the fun ride for all of us. We have a tremendous number of events, and I'll just go real quickly to our events page for that. You'll see that there is a writing contest, we have panel discussions, we're going to have book discussions, and we also have story times. And all of that is going to be culminating with an author visit via Zoom on Tuesday, March 14th from 7 to 8 p.m. And more information is always available at Center County Reads/events. So any questions at all that anybody has about the Center County Reads book this year or about the program in general that I could answer?
Questions? I just want to say in his comments, I looked at that list and I noticed a pattern that there isn't one.
Absolutely, absolutely. It really does represent just something to really tempt each and every member of our community. So nonfiction, fiction, all sorts of different things.
Okay. Thank you very much. And
So you're welcome. So now I will go on to what is a less fun event that unfortunately we had at the library at the end of December. And let me just pull up there we go. So this is going to be just an abbreviated version of the presentation that I made in more detail to the COG Facilities Committee. However, I do want to say that I'm absolutely happy to answer any questions that any of you might have in greater detail. So first of all, a little bit of history. So the last time that SCLO had a pipe burst, it was much, much worse. In February of 2015, we had multiple pipes freeze, and we also had a them break both in the library and also in our underground garage. Damage was extensive. The library was unable to open for an extended period of time. Now, as soon as that cleanup was complete, I want to assure you, and many of you sat on committees for the reporting that was done regarding this, but the director of the time and also the SCLO team began working with an engineering firm to evaluate the building systems and also to prioritize a group of recommendations for improvement. What they did was they looked at the thermal envelope, the HVAC systems, and also the fire sprinkler system. And those recommendations were organized into tiers. And the biggest priority that was identified, and it was way, way, way more important than anything else, was a large insulation project that was going to radically increase the amount of insulation in the building, including the eaves, the walls, and the roof. It took us about a year, and it was a very extensive project, and that project was completed in 2016. Unfortunately, there's no way to test to see if all of those changes under similar extreme cold conditions, whether or not we got them all, which brings us to a few weeks ago and what happened. So first I want to say that we are extraordinarily thankful to the Alpha Fire Company and to the Borough of State College staff, in particular, State College Borough staff member John McClure, for their quick response. Our damage would have been so much worse without them and without their help. The library's alarm system is designed to call SCLO library staff and me, and in the case of a sprinkler alert, also Alpha Fire Company. A little after midnight, I received that call. We headed over to SCLO. Alpha was already here. State College Borough staff were here. We quickly identified the problem. We got the water shut off, and John and I began triaging the cleanup process. Now, the game changer was absolutely access to the professional equipment from the State College Borough, and that included professional carpet extractors, wet vacs. We removed all of the standing water. We got everything on the first floor, all the items, because water, of course, is going from our second floor to our first floor, and I'll show you a little bit on a picture coming up here what that looked like. But we needed to get all of those things out of the way, and we were able to do that all of that evening. So here's just a little kind of floor map of what you see. And what you can see is that the water on the second floor that came from the broken pipe area in the staff restroom, it went through the floor and into the storage closets, which are in the community room and make up the space that we store all of our toddler learning center materials, as well as all of our tables and our chairs. What we were able to do was we were able to continue to clean up on the 25th and the 26th, and we began an inventory to address damaged items. On the 27th, we were supposed to open to the public because, of course, that was a weekend where the library was closed due to the holiday. But we still needed time to get the professional carpet cleaning done, to reset the sprinkler system, to finish hand cleaning all of the items in the community room, and also to have COG codes, thank you, Walt Snyder, review the building and declare it safe for the public. And I want to say that due to the efforts of the library staff, borough staff, SCLO volunteers, and also our COG co-workers, we were able to reopen to the public on the 28th. So this was an extraordinarily fast turnaround time. So what are our next steps? We're hoping through this smaller incident to have identified our remaining weak spot, and we do have a plan to address that weak spot. And that includes a couple of things. The first thing is to recess that pipe and to heat tape wrap the pipe. It's the end of a line essentially for us, and essentially it's the most vulnerable because it's the closest to our outside walls where that wind comes up against the building. We also are looking to install a temperature control monitoring in the second floor ceiling and stair towers to more proactively alert staff of low temperature conditions. So hopefully if we do have low temperature conditions in the future, we can maybe be more proactive in responding to them. And then finally to install a second heater in that stair tower. Right now we're working with our insurance claim manager on all of those things. We are very, very excited to say that one of the amazing things that happened is that we had a number of many small donations from individuals in the community. That was enough to go ahead and to pay our deductible for the insurance. So that was just a very bright spot in what was a difficult situation. So finally, just a few more photos to help you see the spaces that were impacted. We were lucky that the Toddler Learning Center toys and the community room chairs and tables were cleanable. We lost some mobile shelving in the Toddler Learning Center because it got warped. We lost some ceiling tiles. We lost a few books in our receiving room that I couldn't get out of the way in time. However, overall, our recovery and cleanup, it could have been much worse. I've never scooped water with a snow shovel before, but librarians are resourceful. So always looking for ways to solve a problem. Any questions that I have from anybody tonight?
Okay, I just want to say that it's nice to know that your experience. Oh, sorry. Eric, you guys?
Oh, I was just going to mention that Sutan had a question on the earlier item.
Okay, Sutan, then I'll make my comment. Sutan, go ahead.
Oh, no comment on this. I think earlier it was just about the website looked very clean. And so kudos to whoever put that together. But I'm glad that, you know, this was taken care of and that there was some support that came in from, you know, different municipalities, community members and stuff like that. And so hopefully we can help support whatever y'all are needing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And the Center County Reads website is a wonderful combination of Penn State support and our adult services library staff here at the library. So I will pass on those kind words. Thank you. It will mean a lot to them.
What I wanted to say here is that I appreciate the fact that the borough staff and the COG staff stepped up the way they did and were helpful, and I also appreciate those in the public who contributed so that the library could make its deductible on the insurance, and it's really good how the community stepped up here to deal with a problem in the public facility. Now, the last report here is from Ms. Owens on Parks and Recreation. Ms. Owens? Oh, you're here.
Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. So I have just a few comments I wanted to add on to Rich's presentation as well. Just a thanks. The cooperation and the communication, I think, with the municipalities and with those who have supported us over the past few months has really been appreciated. I think this has been a big undertaking for us, and I just wanted to say officially thank you to everyone that's been involved and has supported us through this. Just a quick update on Millbrook Marsh. Some of you may be wondering kind of what's happening with that project because Whitehall has really kind of taken the forefront on that. So just a couple updates. We did rebid one of the contracts. Next Friday, we'll be awarding one of those contracts. So that is the 5th and the final contract on that project for us to award, and then DCNR will go into the review process for that. Once they provide their blessing, we will move into a kickoff of that project. So we're very hopeful to get that moving very quickly. Time is of the essence, and so staff is really trying to trudge along with that project to get it moving and not allow it to take a back seat to Whitehall as well. So just a quick update on that. And also Millbrook Marsh, the Phase 2 feasibility study has been provided to you all in a couple different meetings. Different committees have reviewed it. And just a note that we will be making presentations in the coming months. So please take a look at that. If you have questions, bring those questions during that presentation. We'll have the consultant come and actually give a more formal presentation of that document. I know it's very lengthy. Staff have been working on somewhat of an initial funding strategy and hope to kind of dive deeper into that as we have more discussions on that going forward. We have welcomed 2 new interns to the department. We've worked with Megan Rosonis. She's an RPTM major from Penn State. She's working with Beth Lee, our program supervisor. Has been very helpful. And we have another intern who's working at the Active Adult Center. Her name's Lauren McIntyre, and she is a geriatric physical therapy student. So we're happy to mentor them and also use them as a good resource for the department. Also upcoming on events, we have a winter carnival on February 11th at Spring Creek Park. That's from 3 to 5 p.m. In Bollesburg, and also summer camp registrations on February 1st. So if you're calling to book your pavilions for the summer, avoid February 1st. We'll be very busy taking phone calls with summer camp registration because those camps fill super fast. So that is all, other than we are also planning a cornhole tournament. So we'll have more information coming up on that. Does anybody have any questions?
Moving on to Authority Board and Committee reports. The first will be from Mr. Cervello on the Executive Committee.
We met on January 17th. We had a reorganization appointment of officers. And beyond that, everything else is included in the agenda for the general forum meeting tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Cervello. Mr. Trevino, Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee, the summary that's in your agenda indicates the kinds of the things that the Finance Committee undertook at its meeting, and if there are any questions, I'll be happy to respond to.
Questions from anyone? Mr. Best, Human Resources.
Nothing additional to the summary in the agenda.
Mr. Lord, the Parks Capital Committee.
Yes, we reorganized. We will be meeting quarterly this year. And I'll add one thing, and that is in working with the authority, support of the authority, the Parks Capital Committee will be looking forward to assisting the authority in establishing a foundation to support our parks. It's going to be a long process, but it's becoming increasingly obvious that we have a lot of needs in our region, and we can't expect municipalities through the taxpayers to support all of that. So we're going to be reaching out to the community and seeing what kind of capital support we can get via foundation. That's all.
Mr. Mooney has a question.
A quick question about that. So, well, an observation and then a question. So, back last year, I guess it was, before the Parks Governance Committee collapsed, chose to not meet, there was some discussion on the floor about what might the authority do, if not what they're currently doing. And I believe it was Mr. Frank at the time talked about them being as a fundraising entity. And then we talked a little bit more about them being as a fundraising entity. But at that time, sort of the consensus was they have no experience in fundraising. That was kind of where we left it. Kind of the next thing after then, that governance committee was sort of dropped, and now the park authority wants to establish a foundation. And I guess my question is, since they sort of established they had no experience, are they planning on hiring staff to do that, to show that, give that professional touch that would be necessary for a foundation? And if so, what monies would be available for them to hire that staff? And how would that foundation then be working with the COG? And what would happen to the foundation if the municipalities who established the authority dissolved it? So those were a couple questions, and I'd be curious to know if the park authority talked out some of those things, need for staffing. Did they talk to the library about that foundation and the effort required to establish it? Because frankly, at this time with COG staff stretched so incredibly thin, and I know we're all around this table really concerned about that, I would really hate to see a discussion blossoming of tasking them to then research establishment of the foundation, et cetera, for the park authority, who seems to have a policy agenda of their own above and beyond this general forum. So while we all know we need funding, we as a general forum, despite what Parks Capital Committee may or may not have said, we as a general forum have not supported that idea or staffing it. And if the idea is we're gonna hire a grant writer for the COG, and then they're gonna be tasked to the authority's foundation, that's also a concern. So I guess what I'm asking here is, could you guys make up a business plan before you take up any staff time for that idea? And that business plan would then be done by the authority members, not COG staff. So kind of a comment question.
I think we're at the early stages of this and don't know the answer to any of those questions. Those are the questions we're asking.
Anything else on this topic? Okay, Public Safety Committee, Ms. Rock.
Good evening. Most of our Public Safety Committee meeting was on the agenda you voted on. But there's one important information that we discussed, came from Patton Township, as you all, or I'm hoping you have heard about, is the sinkhole and the displaced residents. We were asked at the Public Safety Committee to inform our residents and homeowners about their insurance. First, there are 3 things on your insurance policy that you should be looking at that you have. One is ground subsidence or sinkhole coverage. The second is earthquake coverage. And the third is flood coverage. Without these items on your rider, most insurance companies will not cover it. We also want to inform renters to have renter insurance. I'm standing before this committee to ask that we work together to put in place some preparation for these items for the displaced residents, because it could happen to any of our municipalities. And this has been an education for all of us as officials, what we're learning about, what's covered, what is not covered. Our residents that just received a letter that they have to get a soil report done before they can submit that to their insurance company. Well, they got a price today, and it's running them between $8,000 to $10,000. This happened, the sinkhole happened Christmas Day. And I wanted to thank Hope from the executive director from Red Cross, which my colleague to my right is also, we're a part of the Red Cross. The Red Cross was only able to give the residents $500. That didn't even cover 3 days at a hotel. And it's been since Christmas, and they're still displaced. We as officials need to come together to help talk to our other colleagues in politics, local, state, to set something up for the residents so any disaster, fire, tornado, flooding, that if they are displaced for more than 3 days, something is out there to help them. They went to housing transition. They were told that they didn't fit the category because they were not living on the street or they weren't a domestic problem. So I am putting my name, and I thank my board, and I thank the general forum and all my colleagues here. I'm going to give my number out. Please, if you have any comments, any thoughts of how to help these displaced residents. And one happens to be an ICU technician with a toddler. I have another father who has a 7-year-old daughter. I have a resident who's been a resident for 30 years who's immobile, who is not able to live in her house. It starts with us. The last thing that the Red Cross Executive Board Director Hope said is that someone needs to step into help. Well, I'm hoping that all of us step in to help, because we all need each other. We have to work together. And I'm hoping this does not happen to any of you. I'm sitting here because I know I am not in my home because I'm blessed to have a relative who is taking care of me since Christmas. So I say to you, and my heart goes out to those that are really displaced and don't have nowhere to go. How can we help? And it starts with us making phone calls. Funding, and Sean, thank you. I know Red Cross was there. I know you were there. Walt, wherever you are, Walt Snyder. I know you guys have taken on a lot. And you've seen a lot. And we've learned a lot. So my number is 814-325-1008. My email is pam_promos@yahoo.com. I have had my name and contact information given to all the displaced residents, and I've got many to call.
Is there anybody who's privately raising money for these people?
Not that we know of. I can tell you now, I have to thank Scott and COG and others who have called me with hotel managers. I've got a few who have called me and is willing to help, not to allow them free, because they can't, but they have given me decent rates for these individuals to stay, and for a period of time. So I'm just putting that out there. I don't have all the answers. Our boards don't have all the answers. This committee may not have all the answers, but it starts here and out there. So, Sean, I can't even begin to thank you as many times, and Walt. for being on the scene and trying to help and doing the best you can. But it's now everybody needs to step in because the next time could be you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Thanks so much for refocusing us on that. And I don't know, it's a good point, like this committee may not be where, or I don't know where, but in terms of the COG, I would like to see some I don't know. It seems like we're in really tough times and we have emergency services here. We have fire here, we have parks here. We talk a lot about raising millions and millions of dollars for parks. Coming from my background that I do of not any privilege, and then like hearing stories like that and there's like no safety net, like why don't we have a safety net? And we're so worried about $11 million for a Penn State asset. I mean, that's important too, but like, this is like people are displaced and our emergency services are here. And so like, what can we do to bring a balance? What can we do to bring a balance here, I guess? So, thank you.
So I say there's somebody online.
Yes, John has his hand.
Sutan and then Patty.
Yeah, thanks for the recognition. I just wanted to, I don't have too much to add. I just wanted to throw some kudos back to Pam, our chair, Patton Township. Been out there on the front and, you know, fielding a lot of these calls and has just, again, this is just a personal issue to a lot of individuals. And again, I'm so appreciative and thankful that Pam has been able to be out there on the front and continues to push and bring that recognition here and accountability and responsibility that I do think should be shared. I don't like to use the word should, but I think should be shared amongst our partnerships, I guess. I think part of my concern is, you know, is this the tip of the iceberg, right? And not if, but when, you know, these larger systemic things happen, we want to have some preparedness for. And lastly, thinking about social justice, economic justice, stuff like that. Environmental justice, I think this is a conversation to be had too. You know, as we think about State College in general and really being seen as this very privileged place, I think then that when things happen like this, there's a lack of awareness of the individuals who actually are suffering and not able to have those social safety nets, et cetera, et cetera. And so I would appreciate a conversation at some point amongst our locales and how we can buffer against some of these things happening in the future. So again, kudos to Pam. Thank you so much. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Sultan. Patty?
I just had a question, Sean, maybe you're one who can answer it. At what level does it become a PEMA thing? The state would get involved.
Yeah, so the local declaration, we could do a local declaration, and that would get us as far as the county. And then the county would have to do a declaration. And then there would be a PEMA declaration. And then possibly there'd be some funding available. It'd be a little hard to explain in this meeting is there's thresholds based on your county that you have to be able to meet to get those types of assistance. And this one probably wouldn't meet those thresholds. We're talking about millions and millions of dollars. And so when we get those major storms, and in order to get that amount of impact, you have to have a lot of residents impacted. And this is one of those that falls through the cracks. And I don't want to, say that that's, the pun here is that it's not, there's nothing for that. And everybody who's said we need to kind of address that, we've done that, the night of the incident, I was prepared using the funds that we have in our emergency, contingency to help those residents. And Red Cross stepped up and did that. After that point in time, we would have to, release those funds, through this group, which it's not a large amount of money. It's $100,000. It probably gets us through the month, maybe. But, there's, again, we would have to then go back and try to recover those funds from a responsible party. And who is that in this case? Is this a natural disaster that doesn't truly have that? Or is it, related to a sinkhole that caused a problem or a problem that caused a sinkhole in chicken wing. So it's very difficult, but the short answer is no. There's not FEMA money available for this type of incident.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Dust?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I mean, I just have to ask it, and I'm hoping the answer is yes, but if we really reached out to our local religious community, I mean, it seems like we have many churches, synagogues, et cetera, you know, in the area that do this well, right, this type of thing. If we reached out, I mean, you know, I'm sure there's a few of us that are local members. You know, these type of charity organizations can really help out with this type of thing. So I think, you know, maybe some of those organizations and starting to work, you know, government and those institutions, maybe that also has to be a number we call after we call the Red Cross as well.
Sure.
I'd also like to include the YMCA in those organizations that we consider. They are a charity and they do have a food assistance program, so they may be available to provide food assistance. And I know that they have resources that they'd be willing to share.
Dustin, Susan, thank you. It starts here with talking about it, you know. Yes, we've talked to a few churches, but as you're sitting here, those of us who belong to churches, yeah, it starts where they're hearing about it. How can we help? This is how they get help. You know, if we don't talk about it, that information does not get assimilated to us start working together. So I thank you both. I've got, you know, I did do some of the churches, but look, you've got churches around the table, you know, and the word is out. And I will definitely be reaching out to the YMCA. I've also contacted local and federal officials. I'm not stopping, guys. We've got to keep talking about it. It may be small. And Sean, I thank you for this because I know how hard you work and I know how hard Walt worked on this. But the 18 families that were affected could be the next 18 at Ferguson, the next at college, the next. That small group is somebody's family. And we got to put something in place to help. Past 3 days. I'm telling you, 3 days, Christmas Day, Red Cross, $500. It is now January 23rd. So guys, thank you. I just thank you for the suggestions and please get the word out.
I want to stress, thank you very much, Pam, for that report and that appeal. Please get the word out to anybody you think could be helpful in this situation. Facilities Committee, Ms. Hardo.
Yes, the notes in the agenda accurately reflect our meeting content from the last meeting, and also several of those topics were discussed here this evening. So unless there's any questions, we'll go with what's in the agenda and what was discussed.
Thank you, Ms. Hardo. Any questions about that? Moving on to the Land Use and Community Infrastructure Committee, Mr. Haymeister.
Point your direction to the COG SharePoint. We talked about 12 items on the 2023 work plan, and those 12 are listed on the SharePoint. So take some time to read those as well. Thank you.
Questions to Mr. Haymeister? Okay, Climate Action and Sustainability Committee, Ms. Whitman.
Yes, thank you very much. As usual, the write-up in the notes for tonight's meeting were adequate to capture what we discussed, but I will note that they could nowhere capture the lively nature and the thoughtful discussion that we had on these upcoming projects and opportunities to deal with climate action. So I I just want to give a shout out to members of the committee and how proud I am to be able to serve with all of them on the committee. Thanks again.
Any questions? Let's see, there's nothing to report at this point on the Parks and Recreation Governance Special Committee. And there's not we just got a report from the library, so is Ms. Madison here to give a report on the Parks and Rec Authority? No, okay. Okay, the other businesses, any matters of record that we should highlight? Mr. Malmberg?
I think we pointed out most of them tonight, but we're not quite near a record, but there's quite a number of them in the packet, so I encourage you to review them and let me know if there's any questions.
Yeah, we got to the letter R. The calendar for the upcoming COG committee and general forum meetings can be found on the reference link and so forth. Item number 24 is my favorite motion. Would someone like to make it? We are adjourned. Thank you.